The 10 Torvan soldiers followed General Vexar down the long corridor of the warship. None of them spoke. The only sounds were their clawed feet clicking on the metal floor and their tails dragging behind them. The general stopped at a door marked with his personal symbol. He pressed his palm against the scanner, and the door slid open. "Enter," he ordered. The soldiers stepped into General Vexar's private quarters. The room was large but simple. There were no fancy decorations, only trophies from past battles. The walls held weapons, armor pieces, and other items taken from defeated enemies. Krell noticed something strange. There were trophies from many species, the four-armed Jaxuri, the insect-like hive minds, even the gas-form mist-dwellers, but nothing from humans. Not a single human trophy in the entire room. "Sit," the general said, pointing to the floor. The soldiers sat in a circle just as they had been in their barracks. General Vexar touched a control panel on the wall. A holographic display appeared in the center of the room. He entered a security code, and the display turned blue. "What I am about to show you is classified," he said. "High Command does not want this information shared, but I believe you need to know the truth." The hologram showed a younger Vexar. His scales were brighter and he had two good eyes. The date stamp showed this was 30 years ago. "I was a lieutenant then," the general explained. "My first mission was to scout a human mining outpost on asteroid LV-426. We were told humans were weak creatures. No natural armor. Thin bones, soft skin, easy targets." The hologram changed to show a rocky landscape with small buildings. "Our orders were simple," Vexar continued. "Watch the humans. Learn their routines. Do not engage." But something went wrong. The hologram showed an explosion, then darkness. "A mining accident. The tunnels collapsed. My team of 5 Taurans was trapped underground, along with 12 human miners." The next images made the soldiers lean forward. The hologram showed the aftermath of the cave-in. Dust filled the air. Rocks and metal beams blocked the exit. Both Taurans and humans were injured. "We expected the humans to panic, to die quickly without help," Vexar said quietly. "Instead, they surprised us." A hologram showed humans organizing themselves despite their injuries. They checked on everyone, even the Taurans. They shared their water and medical supplies. "This human," Vexar pointed to a small female figure, "was their leader. Her name was Sarah Chen. She was a mining engineer." The soldiers watched as the hologram showed Chen lifting a metal beam that should have been too heavy for her small frame. She worked tirelessly, directing the others, creating a plan to escape. "For 3 days we were trapped together," Vexar said. "The humans never stopped working. They barely slept. Even with broken bones and bleeding wounds, they kept going." The general's claw touched the scar on his neck. "This injury should have killed me. I was dying. Chen used her own blood to keep me alive. A transfusion, they called it." The soldiers stared in shock. "When I returned to command," Vexar finished, "I reported what I had seen. They dismissed my concerns about human capabilities as imagination or confusion from my injury." Drex, the young soldier, spoke up. "But sir, perhaps they were right. Maybe your memory was affected by your wound." General Vexar's good eye narrowed. "I considered that possibility, young one. That's why I gathered evidence." He entered another code into the control panel. "Prepare yourselves. What you are about to see will change everything you thought you knew about humans." The large room buzzed with laughter. 10 Torvan soldiers sat in a circle, their scales gleaming under the bright lights of their barracks aboard the massive warship Unyielding Fist. They were celebrating another victory against the humans on Proxima Centauri B. Sergeant Krell, the oldest of the group, held up a small data tablet. His green-black scales showed many battle scars, proof of his long service to the Torvan Empire. "Listen to this one," Krell said, his sharp teeth showing as he smiled. "A human female lifted a ground vehicle to save her young. The vehicle weighed over 2,000 kilograms. The soldiers roared with laughter, their tails thumping against the metal floor. "Impossible!" shouted Drex, the youngest soldier. "Even our strongest cannot lift that much. These humans are not just weak, they are liars too." Krell nodded and scrolled through the tablet. "Here is another. A human fell from 30 stories high, hit the ground, and lived to tell about it." More laughter filled the room. The Torvens slapped their armored chests in amusement. "Their bones are like twigs compared to ours," said Vaughn, running a claw along her thick arm plates. "Such a fall would break every bone in their soft bodies." The squad had been fighting humans for 5 years. In that time, they had pushed the human colonies back across 3 star systems. The Torans were stronger, had natural armor, and better weapons. The humans were easy to defeat. "One more," Krell said, wiping tears of laughter from his yellow eyes. "This report claims a human survived in the vacuum of space for nearly 2 minutes, without a suit, and suffered no permanent damage." Even Krell could not keep a straight face as he read this. The entire squad collapsed in fits of laughter, their thick tails pounding the floor so hard that the metal tented. "These myths get more ridiculous each time," Vaughn said, trying to catch her breath. Suddenly, the barracks door slid open with a harsh hiss. The laughter stopped instantly. Every soldier jumped to their feet and stood at attention. General Vexar stood in the doorway. His dark scales were covered with more battle scars than all of them combined. One eye was cloudy white from an old injury. His tail bore metal implants where he had lost parts in battle. The most decorated war hero in Torvan history had just walked into their barracks. "General Vexar," Krell said, saluting sharply. "We did not expect such an honor." The general's face remained stern as he looked at each soldier slowly. His gaze settled on the data tablet in Krell's hand. "At ease," he finally said, his voice deep and rough. "What were you all finding so amusing?" Drex, too young to know better, stepped forward eagerly. "Human myths, sir. Sergeant Krell was sharing the ridiculous stories they tell about themselves. Would you like to hear one? They are quite funny." The other soldiers tensed, worried about the young one's boldness. But instead of anger, a strange look crossed the general's face. It was something none of them had seen before on a Torvan, something that looked almost like fear. "You find their tales amusing?" General Vexar asked quietly. His claw touched an old twisted scar that ran from his neck to his chest. "Perhaps it's time you learn the truth about humans." The room fell completely silent. Not even a tail twitched. "Sir," Krell asked carefully. "Follow me," the general ordered, turning to leave. "All of you, now!" The soldiers exchanged worried glances. This was not what they expected. As they followed the general out of the barracks, the data tablet lay forgotten on the floor, its screen still showing the myths that no longer seemed quite so funny. The holographic display in General Vexar's quarters changed. The images of the cave-in disappeared, replaced by a glowing red folder marked Classified. "What I'm about to show you," the general said, "is forbidden knowledge. If High Command learns I shared this, we could all be punished." The soldiers shifted nervously. Sergeant Krell cleared his throat. "Sir, with all respect," Krell said carefully, "if this information is classified, perhaps there is good reason." General Vexar's good eye fixed on Krell. "The reason is fear, Sergeant. Fear of what would happen if our soldiers knew the truth." The general's claw tapped the control panel. The red folder opened, revealing hundreds of files. "After my experience in the mine, I began collecting evidence," Vexar explained. "Combat footage, medical reports, prisoner studies, anything I could find about humans. The first video appeared. It showed a human colony under attack. A lone human stood in a doorway, firing a primitive weapon at advancing Torvan soldiers. The human had been hit multiple times by plasma bolts, wounds that should have been fatal. Still, the human kept fighting, protecting others who were escaping. This human took 5 direct hits, Vexar said. According to our weapons specialists, even one should have killed immediately. The next file was a medical report. It showed detailed scans of human bodies. Humans have backup systems, the general explained, pointing to different parts of the images. If their primary heart begins to fail, their body can redirect blood flow to keep the brain alive much longer than our medical science predicted. They have a remarkable ability to survive blood loss, extreme temperatures, and radiation. Another video played. It showed a human prisoner breaking restraints designed for creatures much stronger. We underestimated their strength, Vexar said. Humans can use their muscles in ways we cannot. In moments of extreme need, they can exceed their normal limits. Vaughn, the female soldier, spoke up. But General, if humans are so formidable, why do we keep defeating them? Numbers and surprise, Vexar answered. We attacked before they were ready, with overwhelming force, but each battle becomes harder. Have you noticed that? The soldiers looked at each other. They had noticed. Their recent victories came with higher costs. The general continued. High Command doesn't want you to know that humans are learning our weaknesses. They adapt faster than any species we've encountered. The display changed again, showing a timeline of human weapons development. With each battle, their weapons became more effective against Torvan armor and shields. The myths you laughed at, Vexar said. High Command encouraged those stories. They want you to think humans are weak, to keep your confidence high. But most of those myths have truth behind them. Drex, the young soldier, looked confused. But sir, no creature could survive in space without protection or lift a vehicle weighing tons. Not under normal circumstances, Vexar agreed. But humans have something we don't fully understand yet. When facing death, when protecting others, they can do impossible things. The general pulled up one last file. It showed security footage from a Torvan prison camp. A small human child had wandered too close to the fence. A guard fired a warning shot. In an instant, a human prisoner had crossed 30 meters of open ground, moving faster than the camera could clearly capture, and pulled the child to safety. The guard who recorded this was disciplined for an equipment malfunction, Vexar said bitterly. High Command erased the official record, but I kept a copy. The soldiers sat in stunned silence, their earlier mockery forgotten. Now, General Vexar said, let me tell you what really happened at the Battle of New Anchorage. The soldiers leaned forward as General Vexar pulled up new files. The holographic display showed a cold, rocky landscape. The moon called Titan, where New Anchorage had been built 3 years ago. We attacked the human settlement of New Anchorage. What do you know about this battle? Sergeant Krell answered proudly. It was a great victory. Our forces crushed the human defenders in just 8 days. We lost only 200 soldiers while killing thousands of humans. General Vexar's face darkened. That is the official story. Now let me show you what really happened. The hologram changed to show battle footage. It was raw and shaky, recorded from a Torvan soldier's helmet camera. This was day 1 of the attack, Vexar explained. We sent 5,000 soldiers against a settlement of just 1,200 humans. The footage showed Torvan troops advancing towards simple buildings. Suddenly, the ground erupted. Hidden explosives tore through the first wave of soldiers. Snipers picked off officers with terrifying accuracy. The carefully planned Torvan attack fell apart. We lost 800 soldiers in the first hour, Vexar said quietly, against defenders who had inferior weapons and no armor. The next video showed a later attack. Torvan soldiers had cornered human fighters in a small building. They should have been easy to defeat. Instead, the humans found ways to use the environment against the Torans. They released steam from heating pipes, which clouded Torvan heat vision. They used mining tools as weapons, finding gaps in Torvan natural armor. These were not soldiers, the general pointed out. They were miners, engineers, teachers. Yet they fought like warriors. Day after day, the attacks failed. The Torans had better weapons, stronger bodies, and superior numbers. Yet the humans held their ground. On the seventh day, General Vexar stood before his officers once more. "We captured this human," he said. A hologram flickered to life, showing an elderly man with white hair, a scientist, not a soldier. "Our botanist," Vexar explained, "a plant specialist, no combat training." And yet, the image shifted. Rows of green vials appeared on screen. "He created a toxin that can pierce our scales," Vexar said grimly, "something our scientists thought impossible." The room shifted in unease. "He used plants native to Titan, species we considered harmless." Vaughn gasped. "But how could he possibly understand our biology well enough to design such a weapon?" "He learned," Vexar replied. "They all do, faster than we ever imagined." By the eighth day, the humans had already adapted to most of the Torvan tactics. Vexar tapped a claw on the console, bringing up a new image, a massive Torvan warship hovering in orbit above Titan. "That was when High Command made its decision," he said coldly. "We couldn't win on the ground." The next video showed giant metal rods dropping from orbit, like spears hurled from the stars. They hit the surface with devastating force, annihilating everything, human settlements and Torvan units alike. "We didn't win that battle," Vexar growled. "We destroyed everything, including our own troops. High Command called them acceptable losses. Then they spun the story into our glorious victory." Silence gripped the room. The officers, once filled with pride, now stared at one another, confused, stunned. "Why?" Drex asked quietly. "Why lie to us?" Vexar's one good eye locked onto him. "Because High Command is afraid," he said. "Afraid of what happens when the humans stop defending and start fighting back." Krell's voice trembled. "You mean they haven't?" "No," Vexar said. "So far they've only been reacting. That's changing, and High Command knows it." He began pacing, his armored boots echoing through the chamber. "There's something else you need to understand about humans," he said, stopping at a wall of illuminated timeline charts. He tapped a panel, and a series of weapons appeared in sequence. "This," he said, pointing to the first image, "was their standard rifle when we attacked Earth's colonies. Projectile-based, primitive, easily stopped by our armor." The display shifted forward in time. 6 months later, they created this. The next rifle looked similar, but was vastly more dangerous. They added heated tips, designed specifically to melt through our scales at their weakest points. Sergeant Krell frowned. "But that data is classified. How would they know?" "They studied our dead," Vexar cut in. "Every corpse we leave behind becomes a textbook." The timeline advanced again, weapon after weapon, each version more refined, more lethal. "It's not just weapons," Vexar said. "Look at their armor." Now the projection showed human protective gear, from crude early models to advanced versions with vibration-dampening plates. Our sonic weapons used to rupture their organs. Now those weapons are almost useless. Vaughn shook her head. "But this kind of advancement takes decades, not months." "For us, yes," Vexar agreed. "Torvan evolves slowly, deliberately. We test, debate, refine. But humans, they try something. If it fails, they discard it. If it works, They improve it immediately. Another file appeared, medical scans of human soldiers. Even their bodies are changing, the general said. They've developed treatments that resist radiation, accelerate healing, and let them survive wounds that used to be fatal. Drex still looked unsure. But if humans are so adaptable, why haven't they won? Vexar nodded as if he'd been waiting for that question. Two reasons. First, numbers. We still outmatch them in ships, troops, and resources. Second, time. We struck first before they understood the threat. But those advantages are fading. He touched the scar on his neck again, a gesture the soldiers had learned to read as a sign of troubled thoughts. High Command's reports say we are winning, but I see something else. The map shifted to a recent star chart. Human forces were shown retreating from multiple systems. High Command calls this a victory, Vexar said, but I don't think they're fleeing. I think they're gathering. The soldiers stared at the map. The pattern was unmistakable now. The retreats weren't random. They were coordinated, strategic. What happens, Krell whispered, when humans stop retreating and start advancing? Vexar's answer was quiet and chilling. That's what High Command is afraid to find out. He sat back down, the fatigue in his posture betraying his years. The room remained silent. "Do you remember the human I told you about?" he asked softly. "Sarah Chen, the one from the mining accident." They nodded. How could they forget? The tiny female who once saved Vexar's life. "After that encounter, I tracked her career," the general continued. Images appeared, Chen as a young engineer, then in uniform, then with medals, then leading troops. Her hair grayed, her face lined, but her eyes still sharp. "She is Admiral Chen now," Vexar said, "commander of the new human deep space fleet." Krell frowned. "But our intelligence says their fleet is scattered and weak." "Retreating, yes," Vexar replied, "under her orders." The map changed again. Blue dots, human ships, moved with precision toward certain regions. "She's not running, she's assembling, and we've intercepted her communications." Our code reapers translated fragments referencing something called Earth's Legacy. "What does that mean?" Vaughn asked. "History," Vexar said. "Old tactics, old knowledge. Humans have fought each other for millennia. Small forces defeating larger ones through terrain, strategy, and misdirection." Drex's eyes widened. "So they're myths? They're real?" "Many are," Vexar nodded. "They survived nuclear wars, plagues, and environmental collapse. Their stories of surviving the impossible are not stories, they're memories." The final file appeared, an intercepted message from Admiral Chen. "Our translators only got a fragment," Vexar said, "but it mentioned the Thermopylae Protocol." "Thermopylae," Krell repeated. "An ancient battle," Vexar explained. "A tiny human force held off a much larger army by using the terrain. It was a bottleneck, a trap. They call it force multiplication." The soldiers sat frozen, slowly realizing the magnitude of what was coming. "She's planning something like that?" Krell asked. Vexar nodded. "I've warned High Command. They won't listen. They think our strength is enough. But I know Admiral Chen. She doesn't bluff." He stood again, gaze hard. "She's done preparing. Now we must find out what she's planning, before it's too late." The hologram shut down. The room dimmed as if the truth had taken the light with it. "Follow me," Vexar said. "There's something you need to see." They moved in silence through the corridors of the unyielding fist. Crew members saluted, but Vexar barely acknowledged them. His mind was elsewhere. Eventually, they reached the observation deck. Beyond the glass, the black expanse of space stretched endlessly. A vast asteroid field floated ahead, motionless. Our current mission, Vexar asked. To destroy a human supply depot hidden in that field, Krell answered. That's what the orders say, Vexar replied. He gestured at the floating rocks. Look closer. Tell me what you see. The soldiers stared. At first, nothing, Drex said. Just rocks. Look closer, Vexar urged. Vaughn narrowed her eyes. Some of them don't move quite right. Krell leaned forward. The spacing. In some areas, it's too regular, too even. Asteroids don't naturally align that way, Vexar said. Not unless someone put them there. Grimly, he touched a control panel on the wall. The observation window changed to a tactical display highlighting certain asteroids with red markers. Those aren't asteroids, Vexar said quietly. They're human ships powered down to avoid detection. The soldiers stared in horror as the display revealed hundreds of disguised vessels hidden among the real asteroids. The unyielding fist hadn't found a supply depot. It had unwittingly positioned itself next to a massive, hidden human fleet. But our scanners, Drex protested. They showed nothing but rocks. The humans have developed new cloaking technology. Vexar explained they can make their ships look like asteroids to our sensors. I suspected such a strategy after studying Admiral Chen's previous tactics. Bourne's tail twitched nervously. How many ships are there? At least 300. The general answered, possibly more that we can't detect. Yet Krill looked at his leader in shock. Sir, why hasn't High Command been informed? We must warn the fleet. I have informed them, Vexar said, his voice filled with frustration, 3 times in the past week. They dismissed my reports as paranoia and obsession with human capabilities. They refused to believe humans could create such technology or plan such a complex trap. Suddenly alarms blared throughout the ship. Emergency lights flashed red. The ship's computer announced alert, multiple energy signatures, detected unknown vessels powering up weapon systems through the window. The soldiers could see it happening. The disguised human ships were coming to life, their asteroid coverings falling away to reveal sleek, deadly warships. It's starting, General Vexar said. Chen's Thermopyla protocol. She lured us here, knowing High Command would send ships to destroy a supposed supply depot. Now we're surrounded. The ship rocked as the first impacts hit their shields. More alarms sounded. Crew members ran to battle stations. So Krell asked urgently, "What are your orders?" Instead of answering, General Vexar turned away from the window. Come with me to the shuttle bay. Now we don't have much time. The shuttle bay, Drex questioned. But sir, our place is here defending the ship. The unyielding fist is already lost, Vexar said firmly, and I cannot allow what I've shown you to die here. There's something more important you must know, the ultimate truth about humanity. The shuttle bay was in chaos. Crew members rushed to prepare escape pods as the unyielding fist shook from enemy fire. Emergency lights flashed and warning alarms screamed. General Vexar led his 10 soldiers to a special shuttle in the corner of the bay. It was smaller than the others, but looked faster. This is my personal craft, the general explained as he quickly entered codes to unlock it. It has enhanced engines and stealth capabilities. As they boarded, Sergeant Krell asked, "Sir, shouldn't you be on the bridge? The captain will need your experience." Vexar shook his head. Sadly, no strategy can save this ship. Now the human trap is too perfect. He moved to the pilot's seat and began the launch sequence. The unyielding fist and its battle group will be destroyed. Within the hour, the ship rocked violently as another hit broke through the shields. Power flickered. "But why are we leaving?" Drex asked, confused and ashamed. "We should stay and fight to die uselessly." Vexar turned to face them. "No, I need you alive to carry the truth back to our home world." As the shuttle's engines warmed up, the general activated a secure communication channel on the small screen. They could see the battle outside. Human ships were surrounding the Torvan fleet, their weapons specifically designed to penetrate Torvan shields. This is what I've tried to warn High Command about for years, Vexar said grimly. Now, I must tell you the final truth about humanity, the reason our leaders refuse to acknowledge human capabilities. The shuttle launched, speeding away from the doomed warship. As the general continued, the Torvan Empire has conquered 17 spacefaring species in our history, he explained. We've taken over hundreds of pre-space civilizations, but in all our history, we have retreated from only one enemy. On the view screen, they watched in horror as the mighty, unyielding fist broke apart under human attacks. Nuclear explosions bloomed among the Torvan fleet. 300 years ago, Vexar continued as he piloted the shuttle away from the battle we encountered. Another species that adapted quickly, fought fiercely, and refused to surrender. Despite overwhelming odds, we nearly lost our entire civilization before we managed to defeat them through a desperate campaign that killed billions. The general entered. Coordinates for a long-range jump that would take them toward Torvan. Space High Command's greatest fear, he said quietly, is that humans might be related to that species, the Kravak. The similarities in their adaptive capabilities and resilience are too striking to ignore. Some theorize they share a common ancestor. Despite the vast distance between their worlds, the shuttle's engines hummed as they prepared for the jump to safety. Behind them, Admiral Chen's fleet continued its devastating attack. What will we do? Vaughn asked, her voice trembling. If humans are truly like the Kravak, we take the truth to our home world. Vexar answered firmly, not to continue this war, but to end it. The shuttle jumped to light speed as the general spoke his final words on the matter. The humans don't know it, but they've already won. If they truly are like the Kravak, then our only hope is to negotiate peace, while we still have something to offer. The myths you laughed at aren't myths at all. They're warnings. As the stars stretched into lines around them, the Torvan soldiers sat in silence. The truth about humanity now forever changing their understanding of the universe and their place in it. And 3 weeks passed as General Vexar's shuttle traveled through deep space, avoiding major trade routes and military patrols. The 10 Torvan soldiers took turns keeping watch, while the others rested. They spoke little, each lost in their own thoughts. About what they had learned as they approached the Torvan home system, Sergeant Krell joined Vexar at the control panel. "Sir, what will happen when we reach home?" Krell asked. "High Command will not be pleased that we abandoned the battle." Vexar's good eye remained fixed on the navigation screen. "They will be even less pleased by the truth we bring, but it must be told before more Torans die in a war. We cannot win." The ship's sensors beeped. A large vessel appeared on their scanners. Approaching quickly, a Torvan battlecruiser, Vaughn reported, "The Eternal Victory." "They're hailing us." Vexar nodded. "I expected this answer." The screen lit up, showing Commander Draz, a young officer with bright scales and an arrogant expression. "General Vexar, you are ordered to dock immediately. You and your crew will surrender for questioning about the loss of the unyielding fist." "We will dock," Vexar agreed, calmly. "But we will not surrender. We bring critical information for the High Council." Commander Draz sneered. "The High Council doesn't need your information. We have received reports of the battle. The humans used dishonorable tactics to ambush our ships, but we will crush them in the next engagement. Their victory will be short-lived." Vexar exchanged glances with Krell. The propaganda had already begun. "Tell me," Commander Vexar asked, "how many ships did we lose in the ambush?" Draz hesitated. 7 warships and their support vessels," the soldiers gasped. 7 warships represented nearly a fifth of the Torvan fleet, and the humans. Vexar pressed reports suggest they lost at least twice as many. Draz answered quickly. "I see," Vexar said quietly. "We will dock as ordered." When the transmission ended, Drex turned to the general. He's lying, isn't he? About the human losses, yes. Vexor confirmed. I watched the battle begin. The humans were too well prepared, too coordinated. They likely suffered minimal casualties as they approached the massive battle cruiser. Vexar gathered his soldiers. What happens next will not be easy, he warned them. High Command will try to silence us. They will claim we are traitors or that our minds were affected by human weapons. They will do anything to avoid facing the truth. What can 10 soldiers do against High Command Vor? Asked Vexar, smiled for the first time in weeks. We won't be alone. Before I left on this mission, I sent messages to trusted officers throughout the fleet, veterans who have faced humans directly and know what we're up against. They'll be waiting on Torvis Prime. The shuttle docked with the Eternal Victory as they prepared to disembark. Vexar turned to his squad one last time. Remember everything I showed you, he said. Every video, every report. The truth about humans is our most powerful weapon now. Not to destroy them, but to save ourselves. Armed guards waited as the shuttle door opened. Commander Draz stood at their head, his hand resting on his weapon. General Vexar, Draw announced formally, you and your crew are under arrest for desertion and spreading false information about our enemy. General Vexar stepped forward, standing tall, despite his age and scars behind him. His loyal soldiers followed each one, carrying the dangerous truth about humanity. No, Commander, Vexar said firmly. We are here to save the Torvan Empire from its own pride. And unlike you, we have seen the real face of humanity.